So from the start, the pattern of the game was set, with United controlling possession in their own half, with Brighton sitting off patiently looking to negate United's ability to progress the ball forward. And the first issue for United that became obvious was that they were having a tough time playing around Brighton's press. But before I go any further, if you need a place where you can keep up to date with the latest transfer news, find all the match stats you need from games across the globe, and watch highlights and stream live football matches, then you need to download the OneFootball app. I use the OneFootball app because it's completely free, and not only do they have stats and transfer news, but they also have videos to watch and articles to read, which is where I get a lot of my ideas for new videos. And as I said before, you can stream live football matches and watch highlights all on the app. Downloading the OneFootball app will help support the channel as well, so I'll leave it linked in the description below. United would use a 2-3-2-3 shape in possession during the build-up phase, in their defensive third, with Dalot and Shaw holding wide positions as Fred dropped into that regista position, with Eriksen and McTominay sitting higher up the pitch. However, Brighton were looking to press aggressively, and we saw this with the front three in Graham Potter's 3-4-3 shape, Pascal Gross and Adam Lallana either side of Welbeck pressing in a narrow triangle shape, with each player man-to-man pressing Maguire, Martinez or Fred, meaning that United's deeper lying central players had no time on the ball, as a press would come immediately after they received it. Because Dalot would retain a deeper position on the right, then Shaw would on the left, this would give Brighton almost a 3-3-4 asymmetrical pressing shape, with Trossard sitting high alongside the front three, pushing higher up than March on the other side so he can be close to press Dalot if the ball goes out to United's right back. But United must have been prepared for this, as we saw David De Gea looking for those clipped long passes out to the flanks to find the fullbacks, but with Trossard sitting high looking to press Dalot on the right side of United's build-up, and Solly March looking to do the same to Shaw on United's left, United were unable to use this ball as an outlet, so in the first half, Brighton's press was very effective when it came to breaking up United's build-up, and there was a lot of turnovers in United's half as they failed to retain possession in the middle third. The problem for Ten Hag is that he just doesn't have the players in those deeper areas to play around aggressive presses like Brighton's at the moment. De Gea can pull off a long pass on occasion, but more often than not he invites pressure by taking too long on the ball and doesn't have the top level passing ability that the likes of Alisson and Ederson have. And during the game it became apparent why Ten Hag favoured a ball playing keeper like Onana in goal, as the ball playing ability of his keeper is going to be integral to this phase of possession. But Fred as well had major issues in that regista position, as he just doesn't look comfortable receiving the ball on the edge of the box with his back to goal under immediate pressure, as around 10 minutes into the game he did give away the ball after an underhit first time pass from David De Gea, and throughout the game it looked like Fred was a sitting duck in possession, just waiting to receive the ball, which would allow Brighton the opportunity of winning the ball back high up the pitch, because Fred is just not press resistant and his first time passing under pressure isn't the best. Usually I would suggest switching the central midfielders in that double pivot, with Fred pushing higher up the pitch, but McTominay doesn't have the press resistance or first time passing either needed for this role, and so this is why United had such a tough time playing around Brighton's press. And I think we can now see why Ten Hag desperately wants a central midfielder like De Jong in that role, as it seems to be the focal point of his whole possession system. But United's issues in central midfield didn't just come in possession, it also came without the ball when Brentford looked to break through the centre of the pitch. We see here that after Trossard's back heel down the line, Caicedo is running down the flank with Christian Eriksen pressurising him and Fred approaching as well, but neither United player has the athleticism, power or tackling ability to stop the run, and this allows Caicedo to play the pass in behind Fred into Gross. And now, because the United midfield has been completely bypassed, Brighton have a 4v3 running into United's defensive third. This is where having a ball-winning defensive midfielder who is athletic, powerful and a good one-on-one defender can be so important. Players like Tchouaméni and Camavinga at Real Madrid, Fabinho at Liverpool, Basuma at Tottenham and even Caicedo at Brighton have this industriousness in the centre of the park that United lack from any of their current options. And this is why I've been suggesting for quite a long time that United sign someone like Ibrahim Sangare this summer to add that steel to the midfield. From this position the ball moves to Lallana, who picks out Solly March on the far side, and Luke Shaw has to get closer to stop March being able to just shift the ball into his left foot and release the shot, and Fred is sleeping at the back post, so De Gea's parry falls right into the path of Gross, who puts it into the back of the net, and this was Brighton's second goal, which showed the weakness in United's defensive midfield area, whereas the first goal highlighted the lack of coordination and communication in that back line. We can see here as Trossard moves into United's defensive third with the ball that United have a fairly high defensive line. However, there's no real pressure on Trossard, which is the issue, as Welbeck is able to make a run between Martinez and Maguire and receive the ball in behind the back line very easily. What should happen here is that Martinez tracks Welbeck's run tightly until he strays offside. He doesn't do this, and Shaw to his left side doesn't get across either to cover the space in behind Martinez in time, which ultimately leads to the ball going across the 6-yard box and finding Gross at the back stick to put the ball into the empty net. But this goal highlighted why I don't think Lisandro Martinez and Harry Maguire is a good centre-back partnership, as neither of them are leaders in that back line who have the awareness to not just recognise the position of themselves, but the position of the back line in general. If you look at the best centre-backs in the league like Van Dijk and Koulibaly, they are not just focused on their own positioning, but also commanding that back line higher or lower up the pitch, depending on where the ball is, and making sure the back line as a whole adjust their positioning depending on the positions of the attacking players. Maguire just doesn't have the awareness to be this commanding centre-back, and I think this is where the defensive issues stem from for United, and I think adding someone like Varane into that back line would improve the performances of the fullbacks and Lisandro Martinez either side as well. So I just don't think that a Maguire-Martinez partnership makes stylistic sense. But what might actually be more concerning was United's lack of creativity in possession. One of their best attacks of the game came after a quick free kick in the defensive third, which allowed Rashford to carry the attack forward, playing a direct pass out to Sancho on the right side, who keeps the play flowing with an arrowing pass out to Fernandes on the opposite flank, and we can see here the benefits of having forward runners from midfield as Eriksen breaks into the space in behind the Brighton back line, receives a pass from Fernandes, but is on his left side and Eriksen can't quite get his body positioning adjusted right and ends up releasing a tame shot that goes straight at Sanchez. However, this attack came from a counter-attack, which is where I think Sancho and Rashford in particular are most effective. But for the majority of the game, United were being tasked with breaking down Brighton's vertically compact, high-pressing defensive shape, where they would man-to-man press United in their defensive third. But because Graham Potter's side are so well organised in their press, with all players' movements flowing in tandem, Brighton don't lose their defensive shape when they press aggressively, meaning that the press becomes even more effective because United's deeper line players like Fred, Maguire, De Gea and Luke Shaw, who aren't fantastic under pressurised situations, are potentially at risk of being caught on the ball or misplacing a pass out of Brighton's press. When United were able to make it into the middle third, it felt like they completely lacked a focal point, and so even though United were controlling the ball through Eriksen and Fernandes dropping deeper into central areas, they weren't able to create much with killer passes into the box. What I did notice was that Sancho and Rashford weren't holding their width in the attacking third as much as I thought they would. In a video I have coming out soon on Anthony alternatives, I delve into the tactical reason behind Ten Hag's use of natural wingers in the attack holding their width. So subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you don't miss out on that one. But in this game, Sancho and Rashford were making runs into central positions a lot earlier than I thought they would in Ten Hag's system, which I thought was kind of counterproductive, as in my opinion a better option would be to have Rashford and Sancho playing extremely wide, as this would force the wingbacks to either drop deeper to close off the space, therefore allowing Shaw and Dalot more space to receive the ball from central players, or the wingbacks retain a higher position, which instead forces the right-sided centre-back or the left-sided centre-back, Veltman or Webster either side of Dunk, to pull out wider, which stretches the Brighton back line, creating more space for a defence-splitting pass further along in the attack. And this could have even opened up Joel Veltman to potentially being run off in behind by Marcus Rashford because of the speed advantage he'd have over the Dutchman. However, I feel the real issue is stemming more from the centre of midfield rather than the positioning of United's forwards. Fred and McTominay just aren't players suited to a side that controls possession, as both are extremely erratic, and McTominay in particular struggles to be decisive with his decisions, often getting caught thinking on the ball, and there were quite a few times in this game where I felt like a better technical central midfielder like Frankie de Jong would have kept possession or progressed the ball forward, whereas McTominay more often than not was losing possession. Christian Eriksen did look good controlling the play from different positions, and offering something that Fred and McTominay don't from those deeper areas, which is those long switches of play. Harry Maguire and Lisandro Martinez both have this pass in their locker as well, but the pass that I think United are missing are those quick incisive passes on the floor in the centre of the pitch, which allow a swift interplay of passes to progress the ball through the centre of the field. In the second half we did see Donny van der Beek and Christian Eriksen link well with a good series of passes, and I actually would prefer one of those two to play alongside Fred in the middle of the park in that double pivot, as despite van der Beek and Eriksen lacking the defensive ability to really perform that role in the double pivot to a top level, both Fred and McTominay lack this ability as well. So I would say that you aren't really losing much defensive security for a whole lot more creativity in those deeper areas. When Ronaldo came on in the second half, Manchester United looked much better, as he provided those central runs in behind the back line that had been lacking in the first half, and this type of movement is perfect for players like Fernandes and Eriksen. United's midfield setup in possession was a bit unusual. Ten Hag persisted with the staggered midfield three of Fred as the deep connector in the build-up phase, with McTominay slightly higher and wider, and then Fernandes sitting ahead of him between the lines. However, because Eriksen was basically being given full license to run between and in front of the opposition's midfield and defensive lines, United were at times playing with a continuously moving diamond in midfield, with Eriksen's movement adapting the shape in different phases of play. However, without a focal point, United required both Rashford and Sancho to make early central runs in behind the back line, but this just made it easy for Brighton's wide centre-backs, Veltman and Webster, to contend with United's two English wingers. As I said previously, I thought a better approach would have been to have Rashford and Sancho really hold their width, putting the wing-backs and wide centre-backs in a dilemma, forcing them to potentially make a rash positional decision that could open up space elsewhere for United to exploit. The problem is United's midfield double pivot cannot be trusted to progress the ball efficiently under pressure, and so this forces Eriksen and Fernandes to drop deep to look to use their passing to progress the ball, but this just leaves United with no central focal point up front. If Ronaldo had started the game, he would have held a much higher position than Eriksen, and this subsequently would have created more space in the centre of the field, which then gives Fred, McTominay and Fernandes more opportunity to work the ball around Brighton's midfield. But because McTominay is almost horrendous in these areas, Ten Hag instructs him to maintain a higher position, which leaves Fred rather isolated, as he doesn't have the long passing or ball carrying ability to navigate his way out of pressure. This is why I think if no other central midfielder is signed, Ten Hag has to start Garner ahead of Fred in that deep connector role, as the deepest midfielder in possession, because he's a lot more press resistant and is a much better long passer, which should improve United's abilities to play out of the defensive third under pressure. I also felt that United lacked the individual quality in the final third to make the difference. Rashford missed two big chances, with admittedly one being ruled offside for Ronaldo's run earlier on in the move, but Rashford couldn't beat Sanchez in a one-on-one, and the second was from a deep cross by Bruno Fernandes, and Rashford probably should have anticipated where the ball was going to drop earlier and got his body over the ball, but it wasn't an easy chance, but I would say top level finishers are able to take those kinds of chances, and I think that's what United are missing at the moment, as they really only have Ronaldo in the squad, who is a proven and consistent top level finisher, with Rashford and Martial and even Sancho as well all being very inconsistent in front of goal. So overall, whilst Manchester United's inability to play out of Brighton's organised pressing system was what ultimately contributed to United's loss, United had several issues all over the pitch, from Fred and McTominay simply not being good enough in possession, Shaw and Dallon not attempting those penetrating incisive passes when coming forward with the ball, Harry Maguire and Lisandro Martinez not looking familiar with each other's playing styles, and the lack of finishing up top as well shows that Ten Hag has a lot of issues to fix in this Manchester United side. And so I think United have to be making moves in the last few weeks of the transfer window, because at the moment my prediction of United finishing 5th is actually looking quite optimistic at the moment. I will continue to put out transfer analysis videos on any players linked with Manchester United, so definitely subscribe to the channel and click the bell for notifications if you're interested in those types of videos. Check the description for some of my other videos as well, give the video a like and put your thoughts in the comment section below.